Welcome to Lead Like a Girl, where we are empowering everyday women through our stories. I'm your host, Jessica Smith, and I began this journey by sharing my life story. Now, I've joined forces with my longtime friends, Jamie and Corlin, to keep this party going. We met many years ago as young sales girls in our 20s, driven and quickly rising to the top of our industry. As the years went on, life happened, and we all found ourselves in new companies and completely different industries, still striving for success in it all. Career, family, faith, fun. Now, it wasn't easy, but we never stopped moving. Get ready for our real conversations, inspiring stories, and our big life lessons as we share it all. The good, the bad, and the funny. Welcome to Lead Like a Girl.
Welcome to another episode of Lead Like a Girl. Thank you for joining us today. And just a reminder, we are on all social media. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and watch us on YouTube, leadlikeagirllab.com. Check out our website. And if you are looking for speakers for any type of speaking engagement, please let us know, because we are available to come and talk about whatever you want to talk about. So there's that.
Mostly leading like a girl, but we can just off the cuff anything.
Whatever you know that we know, we're there to talk about it. We're there for it. So
Sounds good.
I am really excited about this episode, and I am going to want lots of feedback from it because this is timely for me. I have been interviewing for the last, I would say, maybe 9 or 10 months now, straight. So I want to share.
Can I just ask out of the gate, how is your stress level considering that statement?
Yeah.
Honest.
So I have been, and you know, that's a great way. I'm going to get into, is this your icebreaker, Cord?
No, this is just my very extemporaneous, like, that is a lot of work in my opinion.
Yeah.
And just a lot in the brain, lots in life, a lot of planning, a lot of extra while you're still trying to do your job too. Not to fill in my answer, your answer with my answer, but.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, most of today, like real time today, I worked on my business plan and an email that I'm sending before a second round of an interview that I'm having next week. So
you're doing work for the job that you don't have yet, but in anticipation of landing this, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
And specifically, not every role is going to require this, but I'm going for a role that is very competitive. And this is like a knockout, drag down, like it feels like 12 rounds in the ring type shit. Okay. So, yes, back to your question. You could land in a rubber room if you're not careful. And those of you that have not been in one of those before,
Can you explain that? I don't know what that means. I'm so sorry.
I do.
Wait, you think of.
I do. I've been there. No,
No, I just know what you mean. You could land in a rubber room. I know. I know exactly what you're saying.
Corlin, thankfully, you've never been evaluated. But if you ever have a mental breakdown and you're evaluated and they're concerned about your health, they will put you in a room. And so think about when you had those, when you were in gym class and you were on the tumbling mats. Well, the whole room is made of that. Yeah.
Safe.
Yes, it's safe. So anyway, and just so you know, I've been in one, but it wasn't me in the room. So I'll just put
I think that's a great, just like, let's like cue that term, like rubber room, as just like, that's a safe space.
Yeah.
And it's not the bottom of the barrel. It's just a safe space.
Rubber room.
It's a rubber room.
You're safe there.
If you are not careful, that's where the stress level of interviewing can put you. So just like I always say, you have to be proactive. You have to be intentional. And for me, it's extra prayer, extra meditation, extra walks, stopping and breathing. And I don't know. I just hope that one day I can impact. And I don't know, maybe I'm in the wrong org. Instead of sales. I need to be in the people solution to impact interview processes and organizations, because I don't know that we're mindful that sometimes we create processes that can really disturb someone's mental health. So that's a long, long answer to your question, but I have really almost lost my shit many of times in this 9 months. So I'm getting better, and I really just want to share every aspect of this experience. So this will all be in the book at some point, but I want to start with some icebreakers, ladies, in terms of interviews. So you can, whoever wants to answer, I know you don't know what I'm going to ask, but I want to know about the worst or the most awkward interview that you have been on. Now, here's the thing. I know before this company, we were with, right, like one company for a long time. So maybe we didn't go on a lot of interviews, but don't worry, I made up for all that time in the last 8 years. But Jamie sounds like she has one that she wants to share. So tell us about that.
It's very quick. I applied to some places when I lived in North Carolina, and I was moving back to Iowa, and I got a call. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't even remember applying to this place. He said, "Why did you want to, work here?" And I'm like, "I just made some stuff up on the phone. You seemed like a dynamic company, and I think I would fit in." And I completely made some things up. Anyway, got completely off the cuff. I did not even remember. Got the interview, showed up dressed to the nines. I'm talking pencil skirt, heels, hair in a French, what's the thing? The whatever.
French twist for those
French twist with a chopstick up there and all the stuff. And it was a Friday.
I hope
and
that was the 90s. Go ahead.
I know.
Coming back, I saw it.
It's there. Hoop earrings.
Of course.
Of course.
That's your signature.
I'm sorry. I've been wearing them for 30 years. So, and he's in a baseball cap and a flannel and jeans and sneakers. And I'm like, this is one of the things I wrote down for our topic tonight. Anyway, so I walk into and he's like, "It's casual Friday." But we walk in, we're doing the interview. And I just, whatever, absentmindedly kind of like scratched my arm. And I look down, I'm literally bleeding. Like I have like a trail of like blood running down. I must have scratched like something on my arm.
Just got stabbed?
Literally, there's blood running down my arm during my interview. And he looks at me and he's like,
"You're just like, oh, don't worry about that."
He's looking at me and he goes, "You're bleeding." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And I look at him and he looks at me and he opens his desk drawer and he pulls out a roll of toilet paper and he gives me like a wad, and I'm holding a wad of toilet paper against my arm, and I go, You have a roll of toilet paper in your desk?" And he's like, "Why? You're bleeding." just like the most awkward interaction I could ever have. Ever.
Oh man. See, we can't play in this stuff. See?
That is the
Can you
best.
make it up? No, you
Oh
can't.
my
So that
gosh.
happened.
And they did not know I was going to ask that. Well,
No. So that happened. That's my story.
That was good. That was good.
Got the
well,
job.
Mine,
Oh my gosh.
Got the job.
Oh, I
Worked
was
there
going to
for
say,
9
did you
years.
get the job? That's funny.
Got
Well,
it.
'cause he
Worked
felt
there for
sorry
9
for
years.
you. He's like,
Did you
all over
take
his
it?
desk.
Did you
took the
report to
job,
the toilet paper man for a minute?
was very successful at the job, got the job, loved the job, worked there for 9 years.
Was it Darren?
It was not Darren. It was not Darren.
Oh,
It was a very sad,
not
but I mean,
Just kidding,
Nate.
Darren, if you're listening.
Oh,
You're
my
great.
truly
gosh.
though, I mean, who, why, how, what? You can't even make it up. I was like,
Oh my gosh.
what?
I see
I'm
now this is
bleeding
going to
and-
take longer than I thought, ladies. So mine will be, I want to share something. Mine will be quick. And so I had way too much going on. And I think the reason why this happened is because I got an email saying that I was going to be interviewing with a panel. And the panel was 5 people. And I would say I knew all 5 of them. It was in the org that I was in. And I knew the first 5 minutes, first of all, out of the 5 people that were supposed to be in the panel, only 2 of them showed up. That's the first thing. So that's the first sign of this is a
Whoopsie
bullshit interview and it's not real. And you guys are here just to check the box. So I'm feeling that. I'm knowing that. And then they start asking me about my leader. And I'm like, what is happening here? They're asking like, oh, well, how is so-and-so? And does, like, do you, and I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with this job? So not only are you here to just check the box, you're also here to get information as intel against my leader. It was a cluster. So now I'm just going along with the motions, but I'm pissed because I'm like, you're wasting my
A
time.
giant waste of time.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they ask me to present my plan. And I go to share my screen. And instead of my plan, I bring up my real estate practice exam.
Oh,
Your side gig?
your side hustle. What you were working on as your side hustle.
But honest to God, I never worked on real estate stuff during work hours, but I did use my work computer because that's the only computer I had. Anyway, at that point, you know what I wanted to do? I just wanted to slam my laptop shut and just flip the table because I'm like, I'm done here. And then the woman that was in there, she was already a big old bee. She's just like, don't think that's the right screen, honey. And I'm looking at her. First of all, I'm not your honey. My whole damn name is Jessica, and it doesn't have honey in it. I said, oh, my fault. And I just switched it back. But that's my story. Didn't
Just
get the
leave
job.
it.
Wasn't going to get the job, but it was a cluster. So that was the most awkward, worst interview that I ever had.
Yeah, I think that I shared one before where I showed up and I was pregnant and did not get the
Yes,
interview,
yes, I
and that was
remember.
pretty lame. But I have actually another one that
And you
it
could
was.
be the interviewer, by the way.
I showed up for an interview, and I think it was pre the company. I think it was when I was trying to get like a good sales job, and I was hungry, and so I got this call for this company. It was high sales, like natural products, like super excited about it. So I get all dressed up, interviews at maybe 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm ready to go. Business professional, same thing, Jamie, like suit on, resume, like presenting, like rehearse all my interview questions, all set. And then I show up and there's multiple people at the door, and I still haven't figured out what was happening, but I got introduced to the lady that had invited me in, and I go into a room where there's 20 people sitting there in front of a screen. This was an Amway presentation.
Oh, I
And
know that.
I just thought, oh, this is my first. So I actually didn't really understand fully what was happening until they started playing. They welcomed everybody, started playing the video, and then kind of one by one, people just started understanding, oh, I see what's happening here. And people just started leaving. And so, and polite me just sat there and finished. And so the lady came back and since I stayed, that, subconsciously says that I'm interested.
You sell Amway now?
Right. No, I don't. I just politely said, this is, I thought this was a legit job. Like, it is a legit job interview. Nothing against Amway. More power to you if you're in that role. But it was not great. It was just a very unexpected surprise and also a giant waste of my time.
Oh, I know the feeling. Well, those are some good ones. Thank you, ladies, for sharing. I want to jump into this conversation, and the first thing that I want to talk about is how interviewing has changed. When we think back 20 years ago versus today, and I did this. I told the story about my direct buy interview and just interviewing just in general. How do you ladies, how can you describe how it's changed?
I think right out of the gate, there's just so much more information. As the interviewer, there's just so much more information and so much recon that you can do on the front end to be prepared for who's coming in. So I think the qualification process, probably good and bad, you can kind of go look at it from both perspectives. That when I've been interviewing recently, I looked up the people that applied on their LinkedIn. Do they have a Facebook? Do they have any other notoriety that on any kind of website or any other things that I can read about them? So I feel like I have a good picture of this person's personality, and what they're into and what they're not into before they even step into the door. So I
Yeah.
think that either that can be an asset or it can be a super huge liability depending on how fast and loose you are on social media these days.
No, that's a great shout out, Core. And this is for our listeners, this is coming from the person who is interviewing you. And as someone who also interviews, I do the same thing. And I'm like a super stalker. That's what that's what I call myself. So I am
1,000%.
like, I am just being real. I am judging the hell out of you when I am looking you up on social media, on TikTok, on LinkedIn. I'm also looking on LinkedIn, and this is on a whole nother show that I have on my to-do list. This is important because if you have little to no activity, that also tells me something about you. LinkedIn is our social media platform. So you're all over TikTok and you're all over Facebook and all that stuff. But then LinkedIn, you're like a ghost. You need to think about that when you're out on the job market. So, and remember, we don't look for a job when we need a job. So that is important. Another show, but it's important to know that that is part of the interview process. So interviews have changed when we think about now, a lot of interviews are more virtual. The pandemic, I think, kind of turned that some, even with more remote working. Also, even if you're going to go in the office, sometimes your interview is going to be remote. So that's important. I did an interview one time when the guy in the background had the TV on. His mom was walking past, and no.
Do we need
For
to
me,
insert like a
Really?
clip of what is it? It's the interview. It's actually called The Interview, and it's Owen Wilson and whatever that other guy's name is who's interviewing at Google, and that's their first online interview, and they're just like, I don't know how this microphone works, and their screen's backwards, and it's just a cluster. It's just a mess.
yeah, yeah. And I guess, he thought, and this guy was an older gentleman, and I felt like, wow, maybe he's not used to this. He had a sweatshirt on. So
He didn't
I,
think
I
you could
just,
see him. I think it
that,
was like a one-way
right,
camera.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so that's important to just understand that there's a lot of things that have changed over the years. And the other thing too is that um, I always say it's sometimes the reason that they tell you that you don't get the job, because after you don't get the job, we come back and we want to know why. We want feedback. And when they tell you all of these things that you did wrong in the interview, and you say, and you see who got the job, you're like, I didn't have a chance in hell, right? But you have to eliminate all of the excuses. Make it difficult for them to tell you no, especially when you know that you can do the job, you're qualified for the job. So the interview process is still important, even though you may say, well, I didn't have a chance. They already had their person picked. You still have to show up in the interview. So I
Well, and I
want
think another way to consider that too, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but before we move on, is that I remember when we were selling our house and our realtor had given us this piece of advice is that when people walk through your house, you don't want to have people say, oh, I love this house, but the carpet sucks. Or, oh, I like this house, but the bathroom's dated. And I think that really is a great example when you're interviewing. As
yeah,
much as you can, try to eliminate those buts. Like, oh, her resume was solid, but then when I looked at her social media, it was a mess. Or,
right.
and those types of things. Like, make sure the things that you can control, you absolutely control, so you have the best foot forward, the best chance at making it on to the next step.
Absolutely. And listen, there are people that, especially in the automotive industry, if you come from that world and then all of a sudden you're in the corporate world, interviewing may not be something that you were taught or you weren't developed in that area. So I hope that you can pick up some pointers from this episode and be able to, take that into your next interview. So just preparing, I think this is anything. What's the saying? Proper, proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. There it is. Do not edit that piss poor because I don't know another word to say it. Oh, you could just say poor performance. But anyway, preparation. So prepare yourself, all those things that I hope we don't have to tell you. Be early. If you're doing it online, make sure you come in early. I've had people come late to the interview and say, "Hey, I had to reboot my computer. It was an up." No, that's not any shape.
Correlate. Today.
For our listeners, that was our today. We were supposed to record starting 10 minutes ago, and my computer had a reboot.
No, and that was totally not shade.
She's
but-
totally throwing me under the bus
No,
right
no,
now.
no, no,
Nobody
no.
knows.
No, that actually happened. I was interviewing someone and that happened. And I'm thinking to myself, that's why professionals show up 15 minutes early. So those type of little things. Now, once you get in the interview, I always tell people interviewing is storytelling. So there are different methods of interview methodology, but I'm going to talk about my favorite one, which is STAR. And I don't know if you guys know this one, but the STAR
Situation,
interview.
task, action, result.
Yes. And so even if, and there's a lot of companies that require that, but even if your company does not require that, I think it is the best. I've seen a few of them, and I think this is the best one, especially when it comes to storytelling. So your situation, task, action, result. And then I always like to add in a little bonus at the end of what I learned from that, if you can get to it quick enough. Okay. So it's storytelling. Storytelling is so powerful, not just in sales, but in interviewing. So when they ask all of these questions, and this is what I love to do. And listen, we live in an AI world. So use AI, use Chat GPT. Last time I did an interview, you know what I did? I took all these different interview questions and I took my resume and I took the job and I said, give me star answers to these questions. Okay. And I know this sounds like a lot of work. It was. And once it spit out all of the answers that were not real, what I did is then I went in and edited each one to my real life stories, but I kept the meat to the answer that made sure that you had a situation, that you had a task and action and result. And so once I did that, I practiced the heck out of them. And listen, if it's virtual, I have my notes up and they don't even know it. Now, don't do like the silly thing and just read it. You have to damn near memorize them, but I have them up so that I can make sure that I do that. So,
But if it's a if it's a real story that pertains to the situation that you will be coming across in your new position, it does come across very naturally.
to some people, but sometimes people are so nervous, they draw a blank. So I think it's helpful to practice, practice, practice. I can totally tell when someone shows up to an interview and they are polished and practiced versus someone who's just showing up. And that tells me, I mean, I will X you out right away because it tells me that you're not prepared, which leads me to another point. If it's a company that you're not aware of, how do you guys usually prepare for an interview with a particular company? What do you do?
I'm going to jump in a little bit with a different perspective because the last 2 interviews I've had, I was recruited. So I wasn't looking for a job.
Okay.
I had the company come to me. And the one thing that I would say to anyone in any of these positions is positions meaning you're looking for a job, they're looking for someone, whatever the case is, you're interviewing them too. Like
Yes.
this is like a partnership. You're going to work together. So although they want you, you're going to commit a long.
And you're questioning, do you want them?
Right.
Exactly.
During that interview.
You are also deciding if you want to commit a long-term relationship with them as well. And so, I was thinking to myself, what did I do?
Yeah.
In the last 2 situations where I was recruited, I didn't care if I got this job. I was happy where I was. So what did I do? I stalked their social media. I looked at their website. I looked at their LinkedIn. I looked at who worked there. I looked at those people's social media. I also
What kind of people am I going to be working with?
Right. Are they in a rubber
Absolutely.
room?
Are they
100%. Is this company successful? How many people in this company are on LinkedIn? How many people follow this company? Also, why do you work here? I asked that of those people in my interview. I said, how long have you worked here? Why do you work here? What do you
Yep.
like about this place? I also did the research on what is this role? Like, what's your role here?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's a huge part of the interview process. It isn't
Absolutely. I love that.
it
Yep.
isn't just you presenting yourself. It isn't just you saying, here's what I can contribute. It's in this day and age, it's hard for companies to find the right person. And it's also vital that they find the person who is going to last.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to have that confidence and that sense of value in yourself when you're in the interview process to go, look, I'm about ready to commit several years of my life and a lot of I'm going to contribute a lot to you and this company. So I want to make sure that it's right. So tell me, sell me on this.
right?
Yeah.
Why should I work here?
Yeah. And I like the
And so-
confidence. That's a key.
That's what I was
thing.
going to say. That's it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think, and sometimes you don't have that ability to come in when you already have a job. Sometimes it's just, all right, something happened and I need a job. So it's kind of, you got to
It's
bring
tough.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's
if,
tough.
but if you can come in with that level of confidence, like, let's see if this is a mutual fit, then I think that gives you a little bit of an edge.
And that's
Yeah.
perfect, Corlin. I think that's the perfect mindset to come in and say, and that's the perfect mindset. We want a mutual fit. We want to make sure that this is mutually beneficial for both of us, because if we're going to be working together, you know,
Yeah.
and I think that's also the thing where it's like, you got to be real and you got to be honest, because if you're not honest and you're not real, guess what? You're going to work with this person every day for how many years or whatever. It's going to come out sooner or later if you're not real or
So,
you're not honest. So I
be
think that's
yourself.
perfect.
Be confident. And here, one time I got feedback that they found me to be arrogant, and I was being myself, and I thought I was being confident, and I thought, okay. And I really had to step back and say, was I trying too hard to be confident and all of that? But I think at the end of the day, that also means, and this was a panel where there were 4 women and 1 man. And I had one of my mentors say they were intimidated. At the end of the day, you're a little much for people. And I'm like, oh, okay. But these are people, to your point, that I would have to work with. So I'm glad that if they found me to be arrogant, they found my confidence. They were mistaken my confidence for arrogance. It was a good thing that I did not get that job, because
Can
these
you
are people-
imagine if you had to work for a panel of women that were intimidated by you? Can you imagine the nightmare that would be?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've worked with colleagues that are intimidated by me, and it's a pain in my butt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to have to report to somebody who's intimidated, that's not a good fit.
Yeah. And well, that I also was wondering, would you guys rather a panel or individual interviews with one person at a time?
I'm just brainstorming
Oh.
both. I've had
Well,
both.
it's
and
easy
I
for
think
me. I prefer the panel.
okay. Why?
I was going to say, and I'll tell you why, because I feel like I don't know, maybe it's because I prefer to be on a stage when there's multiple people hearing one
That sounds
thing.
like a Jessica answer.
No, and I feel like if I have to go through 5 rounds to see 5 different people, I have to go through this. I just feel like it's getting
More
through the
efficient.
process faster when you have a whole panel. And, there's always, like, if that one person you're not vibing with, I feel like there's always that one person out there on that panel. Thankfully, there's always one person that I'm like, that's it. You my person.
Yeah.
I've only had one panel interview, and I'm not going to lie, I took charge. I was like, let me just take charge. I'm just going to ask the questions, guys. I mean, I didn't know what to do, actually, because never had that happen before. And
You'd
there
never
were
been
like
on a
6
panel.
people. I never have. I only had one-on-one. So when I had 6 people in front of me and they were kind of asking me a few questions here and there, and then there was that silence where no one knew what to ask. I was like, okay, guys. So anyway, I'm going to ask you guys some questions. How long have you worked here? What are you doing? What do you do? What's
Wow.
your
So
role?
they
What do
were
you do?
all
And I was like,
somebody missed their cue because they're supposed
and
to know
and
who's
Right.
supposed to
I
say
just
what.
We all know
literally like
whoever's
took
asking the
control of
questions in charge.
I was like, I'm just going to take control, guys. And I think I actually said that. I was like, I'm going to just can I just run this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
when I was in a panel interview, I just thought it was that much more difficult to connect with all 4 or 5 people that are sitting around the table, because you still have a 30, 60-minute interview. And when I'm one-on-one, then I can use my like and trust, and I can definitely connect with you. At the end of the day, like, you are going to want me to work here. And
Yeah.
it's just that much more
Mhm.
difficult to do that, I feel like, when you've got 5 different personalities. But so, okay, so Jessica, what would you say for our listeners? What are your top 1 or 2 tips? You're sitting in a panel.
Mhm.
How do you prepare for that?
So usually the way the panels, usually they're like 45 minutes, and they come in, they introduce themselves, and then they just start, all of them will ask maybe 2 or 3 questions, right? And the key is to, once you really understand what the role is and what they're looking for. So look, I always recommend that you get a very informal conversation with the hiring manager before you even apply. So when I'm in that interview, usually it's not the hiring manager the first round, but you're in the panel, I know something about these people. So when someone asks me a question, I always will throw in an example. Let's say that I looked at someone's um, Facebook and I see that they're a big dog person, right?
Mm.
If there's a way to tell a story and throw my dog in there, or something, that's what I'm always going to do. I'm going to find something that I can connect with them in the story, something I know that is important to them. So as an example, I was recently in an interview, and I know that there's one person on the panel that's very analytical. So I'm going to make sure that when I answer whatever question they ask me, I'm going to be very numbers driven.
Mhm.
And the result was I was able to increase our close ratio by 20% that quarter, which helped us. We were over 1.2 million in revenue so I'm really
Yeah.
going to lay it on them when it
Right.
comes to numbers, because I know that they're analytical, but you got to do your homework to be able to do that. So, so then usually they'll ask the questions, and listen, the number one thing that I find is lack of confidence when I'm interviewing people. Also, people get nervous and start rambling, and it doesn't matter
Yes.
how good your answer is. You ramble, you lose me. You're done. The audience is you've lost. So you gotta make
Have you ever
sure.
had to try to like help people just shut up? Like,
My God.
you
Oh my
just have
gosh.
to like
Yes.
throw them a bone. Like, oh, you have to interrupt them and say,
Yes.
I see where you're going with this. Great. Here's my next. Like, you just kind of like just
Right.
walk them off the cliff. Like, we're just
Yeah.
gonna
Well,
walk
and
them
I was
off
going
the
to say
cliff.
too.
Let's land this plane like right
Yeah.
now.
Well, I was going to say too, Jessica, like if you, for example, if you didn't do your research, but you know their title, at least you know their role. So it's like if you
Yeah.
didn't, let's say you didn't necessarily do your research, but you know they're the controller. So you know the finances are important. So then you know to
Mhm.
speak on the percentages, or
Absolutely.
you don't, maybe you didn't do your research, but you know there's the sales manager. So you
Right.
maybe know the aspects of what to speak on. So,
Yep. And
yeah.
here I tell people this is a competition, and it's all about the tally marks. And you are getting marks. Let's say you show up and I always get good feedback that I showed up and, oh, your smile, you have to, especially if you're not a smiley person, or you have, don't take offense to this, some people just have that resting bee face. You have to know that that's your face. And if it is, you have to smile even more,
It's
because
so
you will
painful.
you will lose points. So
Watching people have an RBF like just attempt to smile, it's just brutal.
yeah. And so, you got to show up, you got to smile, you got to be confident, because all of those things are going to, I also get feedback, oh, your energy. So don't you get a good night's sleep, have some energy, drink a cup of coffee, like not too much, but make sure that you show up in a way that people are energized by you, because you're going to get points for that. So answer the questions. Let your questions be brief, impactful, and quantifiable, even if it's not a sales role. Those are always when you can say the result was. And the good news is, I tell people are like, well, I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Just make the shit up. Like you know that if you increase something, it doesn't have to be exact. But if you can put a number to it and articulate a great answer and get past those questions, they're counting those points. You see them taking notes. Here's another thing too. You should be taking notes. People think that it's a bad thing if they're writing. No, you come with a pen and paper. I'm going to give you points for that, because that tells me that you care about what I'm saying. You're taking notes, right? And sometimes these questions are long. And what I'll do is write down the main thing. And it's okay, by the way, to say, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question for me? It's better that you let them repeat the question than to answer the wrong question. Maybe
You're
you need a little
engaged.
more time. Yes, it's okay. Say, you know what? I want to make sure. And then I love to sometimes, if I'm not sure, and I'll ask, I want to be sure, did I answer your question in its entirety? And sometimes they'll say, yes, you did. Or I have a follow-up question. I love sometimes follow-up questions, because that allows you to give a little more information.
And
So
it's probably really reaffirming that they're listening to you, and they want you to keep talking about whatever it is, the topic that they had given you. That if you had lost them, I'm not asking a follow-up question because we're moving on.
exactly. Exactly. So, and I love in the beginning, sometimes they do an overview of the job and what's important to them. And that's when I'm really taking notes. And the reason why I'm doing that is because, and this is a little more advanced, but if they use what I call some buzzwords in their explanation, I'm going to spit those buzzwords right back at them
Right.
in my answers. And then when I do my thank you email, by the way, and if you're not doing thank you emails, you're out of there. I don't care how good the interview is. If you don't send me a thank you email, you are out of there. Okay, moving on. I'm going to also put those buzzwords, and I'm going to take all my notes from the interview, and I'm going to put that stuff right back on them. And I'm going to use their words to tell them why I'm so great, and the same buzzwords throughout my thank you email. Okay. So taking
good.
notes are important. Getting to those answers quickly, no rambling. Okay. And then I want to jump ahead to, at the end of the interview, back in the day before I knew anything, I thought when they said, do you have any questions? No questions. You answered everything. I thought that meant that was good because I was listening, I was paying attention, and I have no questions because I get it. No, that is so bad. If you leave an interview, and people do it all the time, I'm telling you all the time, please do not leave an interview without any questions. Matter of fact, come with your questions prepared. I like to say 3 questions. Be intentional about your questions. This one is my favorite, so I hope you guys write it down because I've gotten some great feedback on this. This question is, and you guys tell me if you can, I don't know if I shared this before, but tell me if you understand the psychology behind this question I'm going to ask. I asked the question, what is something, and I love to ask this in a panel, what is something that I can accomplish in the first 90 days of being in this role that would make you stop and say, I am so glad I chose her?
I love that.
Oh,
Can I
that's a
answer
good-
that question? You're forcing them to visualize you in that role in the job, and you made them put you in that space, and that is brilliant.
Thank you. It is, and I can't take credit. Someone shared this with me years ago, and I just like, oh my God, that is so great. And here's the thing. The point of the interview is every hiring manager wants to know what's in it for them. How are you going to make them look good? How are you going to make their life easy? It's all about them. Trust me. So
Yep.
you want to be able to get them to the space that they can see you in that seat. And the way to do that is ask them a question like that, because in order for them to answer it, even if it's just for a little second, they have to picture you in the role. The other good thing about that question is you're saying, I want to be impactful, and I just don't want to be impactful. I want to be impactful in the door. In the
Mm-hmm.
first 90 days, I want to impress you. And you better write that shit down. Don't ask them a question when you don't really want to know the answer. That's just like, remember when people used to say, how was your day today? And then they would keep going on the script. It's like, you don't care how their day is, do you? Because you just ran right by it.
Uh-huh.
Don't ask them can you what can they do? What can you do if you're not going to write it down? Because guess what? Again, you're going to incorporate that. You're going to incorporate that in your business plan. You're going to incorporate that in your thank you note, and you're going to incorporate that in the conversation with the hiring manager. And sometimes you will have peers on that panel. They know the hiring manager. They know what would impress the hiring manager. The hiring manager doesn't know that you asked that question. And then you get to the next round of interviews and you say that, the hiring manager is like, wait, what? So that's a great question. The second
Mm-hmm.
question I like to ask, and Jamie, you named it, and that is, why do you work here? Tell me what you love about this. I always say culture because that's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, this is also about you. Tell me what you love the most about this culture and this environment on this team. Um, and then sometimes I'll ask a follow up question. And what do you think it's lacking? I mean, everyone can get better. What do you think it's lacking? The reason I want to know that is because now I'm going to incorporate what I bring to the table, what's lacking in that culture, because I know I have something that can add to any culture and any environment. And then the last question I love to ask, and again, I don't care if you're in sales or not, everyone's in sales. Always be closing, especially in an interview. This is a competition and you're closing them on you. So here's my closing question at the end, and don't be afraid to ask it. There's many ways to ask it. I like saying, have I answered all the questions that you have on your mind about my background, my skills, and experience? Absolutely. So, is there anything left that, do you have anything else that on your mind that would stand in my way of being the strongest candidate for this role? That's basically asking them for the job, because I'm telling you, people leave the interview and they go and talk about you on their debrief with the other people. And I had someone, and this is why I learned to say, um, uh, incorporate that question, because someone said, well, I wish she had more operations in her background. Well, my resume doesn't talk about all of the hats that I wore at Direct Buy because we didn't have operations and this and that. You did it all, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't ask the question, and I have people say, well, this is job is about, risk and credit. And it looks like you haven't done any of that. No, actually, I'm so glad that you asked that question and you brought that to my attention, because I did have a role, and then now you can defend yourself. You want to put down anything in their mind. And if you ask the question, they're going to have to tell you. And then I say, well, because they usually say, oh, yeah, nothing. Okay, well, it sounds like I have your support with moving forward with this role. Is that right? And then, especially if it's a sales role, they're like, this is a closer. And I
Uh-huh.
get great feedback on that question. However, you want to ask it. That third question is about ask for the job. Ask
Mm-hmm.
for the job. They expect you to ask for the job. Your confidence, and that doesn't mean that they have to tell you, but they're going to answer something. And I promise you, whatever comes out of their mouth is going to be important information that you need to know about how you did in that process.
Yep. That's some 5-star advice there. This is gonna be like our listeners. I hope you're hearing. You just got a $2,000 level training here from this lady.
Right. Yeah, you know what? I do. I really do need to figure, I can probably turn that into a master class. But what else? I don't know. Where
Stay
are we
tuned,
at in time,
listeners.
Judy? Yeah, I can't even, I don't know why I'm so excited and fired up about interviewing because I just think
Because you've had 10 months of experience, maybe.
So we
That's
talked
not
about
funny. We'll laugh about that in a little bit. Not right
right
now.
in a little bit. So we talked about confidence. We talked about being prepared. We talked about using the STAR methodology to answer questions, storytelling. We talked about asking the 3 questions at the end. We talked about you better, 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 send a thank you note. And it needs to be the same day, by the way. I really think it needs to be the same day, prioritizing that. And don't get your feelings all hurt if you don't get a reply. Most people do not reply. If you get a reply, um, that's a really good sign. I try to reply to them, by the way, because I just think it's just common courtesy, but
Mhm.
most people don't reply to those, especially if they have 10 or 15 interviews. Um, so yeah, I think I'd love to do a part. Actually, the interview would be the part 2, but there's more that I want to do on these topics in terms of interviewing or, finding the job, what to do before the job. Don't look for a job when you need a job and all that good stuff, just based on my experience that I've had over the last 9 months. Anything that you ladies want to add or?
I think just to wrap up kind of what we brought up was, like you said, Jessica, I mean, we're interviewing them the same. We talked about this a little bit. We're interviewing them the same way that they're interviewing us. Corlin, you talked about just well maybe I'm confused, like them being it's a partnership, like
Mhm.
we're working together. I mean,
Yep.
this is something that this isn't just a one-sided thing. We're going to be working together,
Yeah.
but
And I
also
like that you use
just
that word partnership, by the way, because I never
yeah.
say boss. I never say, like, I correct people that would introduce me and say, oh, this is my boss, Jessica. I'm like, no, 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 we're not that. No, we're partners. That's the way I think.
I remember very early on in my professional career calling my clients, and my I guess he was probably the VP of the company. He said, "I'm so glad to hear you say that instead of customer. You call him a client." And I did, and I called my colleagues, and it was just, it gives it a different level of, I don't know, respect, I
Yeah.
think. And just researching the role, researching who you're gonna be potentially working with, researching the company that you're going to be working with. It's just, those are things that are very easily done, when you're going to get started with the, interview process.
Yeah.
And it's really not rocket science. It's just a couple of tips and tricks that you can do, but also that mindset, that confident mindset of, I want to make
Mhm.
sure that this is right for both of us. And
Absolutely.
I think I think all 3 of us kind of have that same view. And I really like that we all touched on that same thing, that same
Absolutely.
concept throughout this whole episode. So, and then just, I think, finally being real and being honest and showing
Authentic.
your true authentic self, because at
Absolutely.
the end of the day,
You're going to show up sometime.
you're going to show up as your true self,
Good, bad, or
and you're going to
indifferent.
be the one who's working together. And so they
Uh,
need to know that right off the bat.
yes.
I would add to that, in addition to all those great things, my 2 takeaways. One is, Jessica, you touched on this a little briefly, which this could be a whole nother podcast, but I think that the culture of a company is so vital both
Yeah.
ways, that when you're interviewing, we're interviewing for aptitude and ability, but we also need to make sure that the people that we're interviewing fit into our culture, because they can be the most talented person on the planet, but if their personality or their attitude blows, it's going to be a quick hire.
Yeah.
And I think, but then also, if you're interviewing, you want to make sure that you're in a culture with your kind of people, whatever your kind of people
Mhm.
are. And it
Yeah.
doesn't, you don't want to have everyone the same. You want to
Right.
have it diverse, but you
Right.
also don't want to just have a complete clash of culture where it's not going to be a good fit. So
Yeah.
asking those good culture questions are really important. But most importantly, me listening to you, Jessica, and Jamie too, because you've been through this process fairly recently, listening to how much you prepare. This is your job and your career. You spend more than half your life doing your job. This is where you're investing your time, and don't settle, and
Right.
make sure you walk in there ready to put your best foot forward. But don't, if something's a red flag, then it's a red flag for a reason. If it's a closed door, there's an open door someplace else, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you. Well, we really appreciate everyone who is out there listening to this episode. We hope that it brought you value and that you have some good takeaways as well. We'd love to hear some feedback. And again, let us know some other things that you want to hear about, and we will make it happen. So we need you to go to our YouTube, Lead Like a Girl Lab, and we need you to subscribe and to share and like and all of those things and help us share this word with others. Thank you very much for listening. Until the next episode, we are out.
Bye.